In this century, great strides have been made toward the goal of subverting our republic into a democracy. The foremost tactic of the subverters is subversion of language. By calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term, the totalitarians have obscured the real meaning of our principles of government. That is a summary of my report on a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
Welcome back to Notify America. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has won the great state of Iowa, bringing the win home last night. A massive victory, absolutely crushing it. We have the details and some epic reactions to Trump's huge landslide victory. Some of the worst takes last night, especially on MSNBC and CNN. Some of them even almost as good as when he won in 2016. Remember those infamous events where you'd see those Democrats all get together just to scream the word no at the top of their lungs? Well, some of what we saw last night was similar. Coping, that's what it was. Hilarious coping. Also, Trump, Vivek decide to make up. No more bad blood, apparently, just campaigning from here on out. And Nikki Haley, is she ready to drop out yet? I don't think so. Her handlers aren't going to let her. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps me out. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do that so you continue to get these daily updates. Former President Donald Trump wins the Iowa primary election in a landslide, absolutely crushing it, pulling in 51% of the vote, something that we know he really wanted. As news was coming in over the last few days, we heard and reported that was why Trump came out with that anti-Vivek statement the other day when he said, for example, Vivek, a vote for Vivek is akin to voting for the other side. Well, like we reported then, he did that because his internal polling was showing some of his supporters, not a lot, but some, enough to push him under that 50% threshold, a number that he really wanted to achieve, and he did achieve, as it makes him one of the only candidates ever in the history of the Iowa caucuses to pull that off. Well, here's the final results from last night. 99% of the votes counted so far. Trump finishes with 51%. DeSantis takes second with 21%. Nikki Haley finishes third with 19%. And Vivek finishes in fourth with 7.6%. And look, 7.6% for Vivek is pretty good. This is a guy who had zero name recognition. Nobody knew who he was. A guy who self-funded his campaign. And I know a lot of you think that he might be a plant or he's really working for the other side. Look, this is not what you see someone do who's working secretly for Klaus Schwab. It's obvious when you have a puppet candidate like Nikki Haley, for instance. Either way, Vivek dropped out of the race last night, saying he did his part. He brought attention to some of what's really happening in this country, and he's now endorsing Donald Trump to be the 47th president of the United States. And look, this is great because it shows Trump is strong, stronger than ever. Nikki Haley, DeSantis, even with Vivek combined, couldn't get over 50%. Here's some of his victory speech, which, by the way, corporate media decided not to carry live, which we're going to get to in a minute, but watch this.
I want to thank everybody. This has been some period of time, and most importantly, we want to thank the great people of Iowa. Thank you. We love you all. What a turnout, what a crowd. And I really think this is time now for everybody, our country, to come together. We want to come together, whether it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. It would be so nice if we could come together and straighten out the world and straighten out the problems and straighten out all of the death and destruction that we're witnessing. That's practically never been like this. It's just so important, and I want to make that a very big part of our message. We're going to come together. It's going to happen soon, too. It's going to happen soon. And I also want to congratulate Vivek because he did a hell of a job. He came from zero, and he's got a big percent, probably 8%, almost 8%, and that's an amazing job.
And I'll be honest, it was refreshing to see as the country needs a reckoning for what they've done to this man over the last 8 years. He needs to come in and right these wrongs, bring accountability for what these people have put this country through. It's part of the reason that they're so scared he'll win again. Well, last night we got a glimpse of what the next 5 years will look like on corporate media, at least. Crazy takes from both MSNBC and CNN. First, listen to Rachel Maddow. She's like the big dog over there on MSNBC. She gets the big bucks, folks. How she's shocked, she says, just shocked, how she can't believe these far-right Iowans would re-elect Donald Trump. Who are these people? That's what she says. Listen to her as she labels half the country as authoritarians. Watch.
The big picture takeaway from that, and I don't mean to be, again, too dark, as you said, on this, but it is not, if we are worried about the rise of authoritarianism in this country, we are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country, if we're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government, the leader who is trying to do that is part of that equation. But people wanting that is a much bigger part of that equation. Right. And the American electorate is made up of two major parties. One of those parties has been flirting with extremism on the ultra-right for a very long time. They've brought them in a way that they haven't been central to Republican electoral politics ever before, and I know because I've been studying this. But once you have radicalized one major party so that those are the preferences of the people who adhere to your party, the leader's interchangeable. And yes, Trumpism is sometimes what we call it. MAGA movement is probably a better way to do it. But there is an authoritarian movement inside Republican politics that isn't being bamboozled by Trump. They are pushing Trump to get more and more extreme, because the more extreme things he says, the more they adhere to him. And that is coming from a very large proportion of the American right that adheres to the Republican Party. And that's why this is a Republican Party problem more than it is the problem of one man and his leader.
So that's cope number one. All right, Rachel Maddow saying there's an authoritarian movement inside the Republican Party. Actually, here's what she really said. We have it verbatim. They are pushing Trump to get more and more extreme, and that is coming from a very large portion of the American right. Is that really what's happening? I don't remember Trump's DOJ charging his political opponents when he was in power. I don't see Biden going through court case after court case right now, or he wasn't, and he hasn't been. I don't think it's the Republicans trying to remove Biden from the ballot. All of those things are undeniably authoritarian. When I see clips like this, part of me wonders if they really believe what they're saying or not. These networks are openly warning their viewers now that Trump is going to become a dictator. They say that he's going to end our democracy as we know it. It's propaganda, folks. And speaking of propaganda, MSNBC was rolling out the excuse train last night, coming up with any reason under the sun that would explain Trump's victory. Well, leave it to Joy Reid, who, by the way, now has white hair. Leave it to her to come up with something original. This is cope number 2. Joy Reid, watch this.
But, you know, I feel like the important sort of data point, and you know, Steve talks about it a lot. He's going to probably talk about it a little more tonight, is that these are white Christians. That this is a state that is overrepresented by white Christians that are going to participate in these caucuses, especially tonight. Earlier today, reached out to Robbie Jones from the Public Religion Research Institute, knowing that we were going to talk about Iowa. And this is a hyper-evangelical white state. And he said the following to me: Iowa is about 61% white Christian. The country as a whole is approximately 41% white Christian. And in Iowa, we're talking about evangelical white Christians. And he said the following. Because I asked him, what do they get out of supporting Donald Trump? Because he keeps losing, he keeps delivering losses and losses and losses. And he said the following: they see themselves as the rightful inheritors of this country, and Trump has promised to give it back to them. All the things that we think about electability, about, you know, what are people gaming out, or none of that matters when you believe that God has given you this country, that it is yours, and that everyone who is not a white conservative Christian is a fraudulent American, is a less real American. Then you don't care about electability. You care about what God has given.
Yes, it's white people's fault. It's the white Christians who did this. Shame on you for voting for the candidate that you like the best. But what she fails to mention is what we've been covering recently, actually. We just did a whole video on this a few days ago, how Trump is now taking black support away from Biden. 2024 polling has Trump holding an astonishing 22% of the black vote, and Biden losing around 30% of his black support compared with 2020. In another story, Nikki Haley announces she is not dropping out of the race. Not yet, at least, vowing to plow full steam ahead to New Hampshire. And as the New York Times reports, Haley's missed opportunity. Iowa slows her roll into New Hampshire. A third-place finish didn't deliver the boost Nikki Haley wanted as she tries to turn the race into a one-on-one with Donald Trump. That was the New York Times, which sounds exactly like what Vivek's been warning about, doesn't it? How the Uniparty wants Nikki Haley, how she is the preferred candidate, not Joe Biden, Nikki Haley is. They want to narrow the race down to just Trump versus Nikki, and then they remove Trump via judicial fiat and let their preferred candidate, Nikki Haley, sail all the way into the White House, beating the pants off Joe Biden in the general. That's what Vivek's been warning. Well, yesterday, by accident, wasn't purposefully leaked or anything like that. One of Haley's main donors, one of her largest donors, went on Fox News to do an interview, and he let slip who Haley's largest donors really are. You can't make this stuff up. Watch this.
Andy, very good to have you. The numbers certainly indicate that it's not hurt her fundraising. I believe in the latest quarter, she raised $24 million, which is double what she raised in the quarter before, which was double what she had raised in the quarter before that. So the money train is still flowing and going. Are you worried, though?
Thank you, Neil, for having me, and Happy New Year. I didn't. We actually have a large fundraiser on the 30th of January at a major apartment in New York City, where we're raising a tremendous amount of money. Believe it or not, a number of it coming from Democrats.
When you say a major apartment in New York City, whose apartment?
I can't tell you. I'm sorry. I just, I wish I could tell you. I can't.
Maybe you could whisper it to me now, just between you and me. You know.
Well, all I could tell you is one of the biggest Democrats, who's one of my best friends, who you wouldn't believe, who's never voted for a Republican, is a co-host of this benefit.
She's literally a Democrat-funded candidate running as a Republican, but her handlers are these big-time Democratic donors. Luckily, she came in third place. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.